Hello, everybody. Hello, Zori. I have the pleasure to have Zori Dimitrova again with me. You know, Zori is from Heal and Learn. Her contacts will be under this video, and we will talk about the purpose of the person from astrological, but really also from very practical and business point of view. So I will give my astrological perspective, and then I will ask Zori as professional consultant in business to give us her view on the purpose, how to find your purpose, how to maintain it, and how to really understand what your inner call is, of what is the activity that would really fit your personality. Hi, Zori. Thank you for joining.
Hi, Krasi. Thanks for having me again. I'm very glad to have the opportunity to talk to you again on this topic.
Yes, Zori,
it's
thank you.
It's a burning topic, by the way.
Very, yeah, yes.
I think there's some sort of delay in the connection.
The connection is a bit delayed. 1 second. Okay, so I hope we have better connection now. Okay, Zori. So from astrological perspective, I would just review my brief astrological perspective, and then I hope that you will support my view from your business understanding of the topic that we have. So it is about the purpose, which is a bit different from the soul purpose, from this spiritual view that we have on the personality and the soul purpose and the mission. We talk here about very materialistic call, like what you came here to do on earth in your lifetime during your incarnation. And yes, this can be viewed immediately from the ascendant and the ascendant ruler, because nothing describes you better than your ascendant, your character, your emotional status, your profession, everything is encoded in your ascendant, and how the ascendant ruler is placed and where. And then there is this very interesting term which they call, it is more a term which pertains to the traditional astrology and authors like Bonatti or Lilly. And they have very interesting description of this same issue. And they call it primary motivation. I like this term very much. It's really astrological term. I think Bonatti talks about the primary motivation, and this is really what will motivate you. And you already see the keys in the word, because you need to look at 3 planets, and I don't know why they do not add Jupiter to these planets, but they say that Mars is the first planet that you need to look at, and how Mars is placed, because Mars is really motivation, ambition, what you really will aim at, your drive to achieve. So this is Mars. You need to see how Mars is placed in which houses. And then, of course, this is Venus, because Venus is the pleasure. Venus will be the joy from what you will be doing. And then Mercury, because Mercury is about your mental capabilities, your creativity. It is about your the speed of your mind, how your mind operates, how you think. And of course, when these planets make harmonious aspect, like Mars, Venus, and Mercury form harmonious aspects, even better for your primary motivation, then you most probably will be very pleased with what you will be doing, and you will easily find your primary motivation. Now, once again, this is different from soul purpose. The soul purpose, of course, is totally different topic. So we look at these 4 factors. This is just my overview. In the course of our discussion, I can talk more, but it is your ascendant ruler. These are the 3 planets, Mars, Mercury, and Venus, which describe your primary motivation. I'm not mentioning the sun, because the sun will show how far you go with your achievements. We talk here only about this primary motivation, what will motivate you, where you find joy, where you find purpose, where you find a pleasure, where you can enhance your creativity, and when you can reach good results. But the placement of the sun is another story. It shows, and the placement of the moon shows how far you reach with achieving your plans. And Jupiter, the ancient authors did not add to the 3 planets which describe the primary motivation, because they say Jupiter is associated to religious beliefs, moral values, I would add Jupiter as well, of course, but the three planets are the trio to describe your primary motivation. So this was my overview. Zori, now entirely to you from your consultant business point of view. How do you find my description and how does it fit to your beliefs?
Well, to begin with, I am going to focus now on the mindset point of view, because so when we talk about business, we need to be a bit more concrete. And here we are only touching the general values, beliefs,
yes,
mindset, psychology, and how you can deal with that to find the right vocation for you. So we're not really talking about business topics here, although I generally consult on business as well, but I include holistic approaches and then practical business approaches.
Yeah.
But here we're talking only about mindset. And there are many ways you can find your vocation, even without using astrology. Astrology can reinforce, of course, the findings that you have yourself. But you don't need to entirely rely on an external source of information, because this is information that you hold inside already. So there are a few ways you can find what your purpose is in a way. Although I personally believe that your purpose may change slightly. It will still be on the same thread line, but it doesn't need to be entirely shaped in the same way. For example, you might have liked to play the guitar when you were a child and you thought this would be your purpose, and you may have begun your career as a professional guitar player, but eventually you switch to something else. Maybe you become a business owner for musicians, and this is still in line with your purpose because you're dealing with music. Maybe you're not playing it yourself. I don't know whether you can discern in astrology whether somebody would be,
very true. What you're saying is very true. Just that these things unlock in different periods. You may have different purposes, not only one, but then, in this particular period, this one will unlock, then the next one, and so on. Exactly. I agree with you.
Mm-hmm. So now, if we think about what is purpose, it's always based on value. So if a purpose changes, it's not really the purpose that changes, because the value is the same. A purpose just looks a different way. It's looked at from a different perspective, but it is in the end the same vocational purpose that you would have. Very rarely some people change professions completely, but there's still a thread line there. For example, helping people in some way. Some can be nurses and then they become I don't know, somebody
social
who helps
workers
people.
Social workers for, yeah,
exactly. So it's always following the same thread line. That is, if you're in line with your calling, because very often we do jobs just for the sake of income and to sustain ourselves, but it's not really the calling that I'm talking about. So how to find your calling? Let's take I'm going to use now tools that you've probably heard, but I'm just going to remind them to you because, we often don't think about these things. And then often I hear people ask me, so how do I know what kind of business to start? How do I know what kind of job to do? I'm confused. I don't really know. And it takes only one step of determination to find out. It's actually not that complicated at all. One way to find out what you're supposed to do is to look at the things that you're doing every day, your current interests. What keeps you up at night? There's a saying that goes around. Do you do astrology at night? Do you watch occult movies at night? Do you
cooking programs?
Cooking programs, sex tapes, I don't know, whatever your passion
yes.
is, it could be anything. So you start from there and you see, is there any link between the skills that I have, the aspirations that I have? Can I imagine myself doing a similar line of work or working with such people? Because you don't necessarily need to do it yourself. You may be working with people that you're watching. So this is one way to ask yourself the question, what keeps me busy? What do I do in my free time? Because this gives you pleasure. And when you're in the wavelength of, it's not the wavelength, but it's when you're in the flow, let's say in the wavelength of pleasure,
yeah.
Then you become very resourceful. and you become more successful because you don't get tired. When it gives you pleasure, it's not a drudge. It's not, you're not digging potatoes in the garden. It doesn't make you tired. You know, it has a meaning for you. Meaning makes a big difference. It's this thing that takes you miles away. So one way is to really find what gives you pleasure. Some call it passion, but passion is a bit superficial. You have to find what gives you pleasure, but connect it to the resources and the skills that you have. What can you contribute to the passion that you have? Wrap it up, make a holistic view of that, and you know, then you need to go further with business skills and make a profitable business model out of that. But the first step is to connect the skills and the abilities that you have to the interests and passions. Because why keep our hobbies when you can make money out of it or a living out of it? It doesn't need to be a hobby. For example, I was always interested in personal development, in astrology, in spirituality, and this is what I spent my evenings on. You know, I would watch and listen to videos all the time, and now I'm doing Heal and Learn, and I'm surrounded by people who do that. So I've used this personally, this method. Then another way is, I don't know who first said it, I can't quote it unfortunately, but there's a method that says, actually they've made a meditation that walks you through the steps to your death. So you imagine yourself in a coffin. I know it sounds a bit horrible, but you imagine your own funeral and what people would say about you. How would you like to have lived your life? And this is very transformational because people have an inherent fear of death. So they imagine, you know, this is the end. What would I have accomplished in the end? And this is a very powerful methodology. If you immerse yourself in a meditation where you see this picture and you see what would I like to leave behind? What would I like people to say about me? This is very powerful and will actually probably encourage you to move faster towards your purpose.
Oh, very interesting. A bit
Yes.
scary.
Because of the fear factor.
Yes.
Because you see that your time is limited in the end. You think that you have time forever on this earth, especially when you're young or younger, when you don't have any bodily ailments. You think that life continues forever. We often forget that life ends. And we are here to also act and execute things, not only to observe.
Yes, makes sense.
Yeah, but I have another tool, but maybe I'll give the word to you for a while. Maybe
say them. It's very interesting what you're saying. Makes perfect sense. And also, yes, this can be indeed, you see all these activities and pleasures that people have in their chart, but indeed they will be unlocked in different periods, like we said. So what you say makes sense. Yes. So this can be like additional, if you combine astrology and this, it can become a very powerful tool, like your own intuition and the tools that you gave, and also the knowing of your chart, because when you know is also a very powerful tool, the knowing, the knowledge.
The thing is, even if a lot of people believe in astrology, the belief is often not deep enough. And you know yourself that it's never 100%. So sometimes there's a deviation in astrology. So you need a reinforcement of this belief with your own discovery of yourself.
Yes.
This is why the tools are helpful, because, you know, often somebody tells you you're going to be doing this and this, or you go to some sort of a reader and they tell you, oh, you're perfect for this business, or you're going to be doing this and this, but you don't see it as a passion. I have a friend who told me, yeah, I was told that I'm going to be working with women and children, but I don't see a passion to be working with women and children. No, I'm not interested. So maybe the time is not right, or maybe it was not correct. The thing is, you can't rely on external information all the time.
Oh, very true. Your intuition is the very right voice, of course. But in astrology, it is a timing factor, because you can have dormant purposes that just stay really dormant in your chart. When astrologer told me many years ago that I would do astrology, I wouldn't ever imagine that this would happen. And it happened in the year that she told me. I couldn't believe my eyes. When she told me this, I was working for a big corporation. Wouldn't totally fit my desires at that moment. And when she said this many years ago, I was thinking that she was wrong, and she wasn't. So it is about this also, the fact that some things can really be sleeping in your chart, dormant until the right moment, until the right primary direction or heavy transit comes to activate them.
Well, when you switched careers and while astrology was dormant, did you actually have interest in astrology prior to that? Were you developing it?
Yeah, very much. Of course, always esoteric studies I do since I'm very small, always. But wouldn't imagine that this would be my primary motivation, because my primary motivation at that time was very different. I would do PhD in organizational psychology. I would do empowerment, very business practices, psychological, but still business practices, and wouldn't ever imagine that I would really devote all my time to astrology. But until this thing wasn't awakened.
But it's very interesting, because usually people see in retrospect they're able to connect the dots in retrospect. So maybe if you look back, you would see that whatever you were doing before maybe brought you to exactly what you were doing now. If you try to connect the dots, there's for sure something that you're using out of the skills that you had developed before that.
For sure. Very, very sure. You don't really, you follow your path. And even though there are deviations, it's still the same path. And it is the same contract that you signed before you came here. And all this is written and it was known. The question is that we come with amnesia and we don't know. But as you say, yes, there is a link, of course. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So we need to help ourselves, whether through the help of other people or with our own skills and abilities. There are ways. People have been there, have done that, have discovered their purposes, and are following their path with which they came. And now I'm going to give you just the third tool to wrap it up. It's a very, it's a minor thing, but yet it can add up to your feeling of security that this is what you should be doing. So if you think about the point in time when you changed the decision of what to do in life, it was probably sometime around teenagehood, because this is when you decide which university to go to, or if you decide not to go to university, what work you should be doing, and so on and so on. So when you were a child and up until the end of being a teenager, you probably had some interests that you were very good at. And these interests at some point were completely abolished, either by you because you heard that this is not profitable, or this would not make you money, or because somebody ridiculed you, or because your family didn't accept, many reasons of why you decided not to do what you were very good at as a child. And you thought, oh, this was just a childhood hobby of mine. And it could have been. For example, I at some point wanted to be an architect. I wanted to be, what else did I want to be? I wanted to be a psychologist. I wanted to be at some point. I don't think I wanted to be a flight attendant for very long. But what I mean is, because this is what usually kids at that time wanted to be. And so I can't relate at the moment to these childhood desires for my profession. But maybe some people can. And
I definitely can.
Then tell us your story then. What were you dreaming about when you were a child?
I was collecting seeds and herbs without even understanding them. I was just collecting and planting them. We had a big garden and I would plant them. And now my biggest passion is astrological herbalism. But I didn't do these seeds for like 25 years after. And then suddenly this thing I don't know how, I don't even remember how this came up back. But when I was really small, I would collect herbs, and in a very funny way, I would take the seeds and I would plant. Of course, most of them unsuccessfully, but I was always gardening in a childish way, you know.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I relate very, very much. Definitely. Now this is my biggest passion, the herbalism. Indeed, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but as you say, maybe there's a point in time when something unlocks and you relate to whatever your passion was as a child that was buried somewhere there.
I'm sure. I am sure, yeah.
So this is the third method. Yeah, so number one, what are your passions right now? See if you relate, if it speaks to you as something that you want to
But
do.
when you say this, because you relate to the childhood, if you relate to past life, there is a tool to see your past life to a degree in the chart. You can't review completely, but to a degree in a helpful way. And also maybe to do those regressions. When they tell you what you did in your past lives, this can also, since you went back to the childhood, why not going back to the past lives?
Well, I don't know if you're still supposed to be doing the same vocation in this life. This is the thing. This is where I'm not an expert on, so I
I'm
can't
not
tell you.
sure also. I am not
Mm-hmm.
sure. But
Yeah.
what if we, and I believe to a degree that this is possible, that we follow the same patterns. Like if one was astrologer before, or why am I saying astrologers, anything, like one was like big mathematician, say, before, and would make own um, research results and would come with really scientific truths in his past life, why would he bury this completely? Why wouldn't he use this knowledge now in this incarnation, this
Yeah.
expertise? That is why you have Rahu and Ketu in the chart. Ketu would show
Mm-hmm.
your past expertise, and Rahu would show what your expertise may be, your desire to achieve in this life, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've often thought about Rahu and Ketu as well, when Ketu also shows you early childhood, right? So therefore, what you're saying could be very correct, that early childhood is also a remnant or inheritance from a past life.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Not, because that's when your information is not maybe not completely deleted yet.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. That's true.
So
You said about another two. Say your last two.
no, I was just wrapping up all the
Yeah.
three things I said. And one of them was to go through a meditation or just imagine very vividly the end of your life and what would you like to have achieved in this life and what would you like people to say about you. And imagine the people that are closest to you, so, and most important to you, because this is your value and the purpose is always based on the values. So if for you the family is most important, you should be able to say what your family would say about you, whether you have fulfilled your purpose, whether you have followed your values, because value is a building block and on top we have the purpose. Just like you say Jupiter should be included, or Jupiter is the value and on top you have Mars and
Yeah, very
all the
true.
other build on top. So if you say, for me, professional development and achievement is the most important, then you should be able to say what your colleagues and business partners and clients would be saying at your funeral. So this is the methodology.
All
You
right.
see what the people that you value the most would say about the fulfillment of your purpose.
Yeah.
And this is how you discover it, actually, because by knowing this is how you connect it to your values.
Yes, yes, yes. Makes sense. It makes sense. Also, one thing to summarize. This is the very interesting thing about Rahu and Ketu. When you imagine them, they are like the head of the dragon and the tail. And because they're cut off in two parts, you're missing the body, which would say that we live either in the past or in the future, and we do not live enough in the present. And in our spiritual texts, it said maybe that we should live more in the present and not be so concerned with the past incarnation and the future. So maybe it's a good summary, but that we indeed need to live for now. Now is the timing, and not always in our past. not so much in the future, because what we do in this moment now will be decisive for the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And final word, I mean, I don't want to say final.
Yeah, we say.
Another thought on achievement. When people think, what would I like to have achieved in my life? It's always so grandiose. You think it needs to be something big, because the word achievement has a connotation of something big.
Oh yeah.
But again, most people live a life that is non-distinctive. It's just a normal life. There's nothing grand that you can say, and there's still achievements there, because it only relates, it's your own judgment. It relates, so you're the one who should be judging your achievements.
Exactly.
And people, instead of acknowledging outside, or rather having their value judged by outside opinion and by outside measures, they should rather look for what they see as their own achievement, what relates to their own values, to their own purpose, exactly, to their own measures.
Yes, because how we perceive achievement in our material reality is very, very different from the way actually achievement is perceived from the heavenly, the spiritual reality. Therefore, as you say, very true, we have to ask ourselves and our intuition whether the achievement is this achievement. Yes. What is the achievement for ourselves? Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Zori. This was very interesting. Hope we talk again on other interesting subjects. Thank you so much. You will find Zori's coordinates under these videos, and don't hesitate to ask us questions and comment.
Thank you.